Today we're going to change the spark plugs in a Volvo V8 engine. Nice smooth Yamaha V8 engine. The front's pretty straightforward, plenty of room. The back, you could probably reach in. I don't know if the cover will come off with the torsion bar in place, but I'm going to remove this. I'm calling it a torsion bar. It just prevents the engine from rocking when it accelerates. And also it's connected to the towers, which gives some stability to the top of the struts, and that helps in going around corners. So we'll begin by removing the dipstick and the cover. Next, I'm going to remove all the anchor points for this wiring harness so that I can have a little more room to play with. I guess I could take all of the coil bolts loose and just take it out that way, but I'd prefer to just move it out of the way. The coils have two grounding points, so I'm going to disconnect that first because that way I won't stress these wires when the wire loom comes loose. Alright, I have a screwdriver here, so I'm going to release the coils now. I'm going to just push up on it a little bit, depress the unlocking tab, and with my screwdriver I'll just give it a little turn and it pops right off. Alright, next we will remove the coil, and that exposes the spark plug. You want to examine your boot for oil. That would not be good. You can also label them if you want to put them in the back in the exact same order, or you can place them on your cart in order. Alright, then comes the spark plug. And there we go. Alright, with the spark plugs out, you want to inspect them, see if there's anything unusual. If you don't have a chart that tells you what to look for, then you can just compare one to the other. They all look the same, well, that's good, especially if all 8 look the same. And then there are charts available, and I'm sure plenty on the internet too, that'll tell you if it's running rich or hot or cold or all those other things that go wrong and end up fouling a spark plug. Alright, now it's time to install the new ones. Got my handy dandy pack. I like the Volvo spark plugs tell you which vehicle, which engine. You know, you really don't have to worry about matching things up. It's pretty straightforward. The package opens up real easy. These little tabs just pop right off. You don't have to cut it, tear it, rip it, nothing like that. So what I like to do is I like to just barely get it started like that, just enough to hold it in place, and that way when I pull the socket out, it doesn't stay on the spark plug. I've also taped these two pieces together to prevent them from separating when I pulled the tool out of the spark plug well, and I have also started it and then used a regular socket and not a spark plug socket to tighten it down so that it'll release also. So I've done all those things to help prevent me from fishing a spark plug socket out of the spark plug well. Next, you want to torque them down. I'm set to 25 Newton meters. Alright. Then it's reassembly. We'll reinstall the coils. These are kind of dirty. I think I'd like to clean them up maybe. I don't know. A good sanity check is to make sure that they all sit down flush and are at the same level. You know, that way you don't have a spark plug backed out. You know, if you cross-threaded it or something, you could torque it down, but it's not in all the way, and you have one of your coils sitting up, then you know something's wrong. That's a good visual check. So the anchor bolts, I know they're not anchor bolts, I'm calling it a anchor bolt because it's setting the wiring harness in place. Well, anyway, it has a button on the top of it, and that helps keep the cover on. The cover kind of locks into that teat right there. So I needed a deep well socket to get those off, just to let you know. Should hear a click when you connect the coil to the wiring harness. I muffled that one. Alright, we are done on this side, and that was the easy part. Because I'm sure that the other side is going to be a little bit more difficult. Or at least it's going to be blind, a lot of reaching and not seeing. So I'm going to begin by removing the torque bar here, or anti-torque bar, anti-rotation bar, whatever you want to call it. So that's what the bolt looks like. There's this keeper that the nut is welded to. There's a starter tip. So that's how it's assembled through the rubber bushing. So this will fall off, so you want to keep your hand on it. It actually, I had to slide it off this way. It didn't really want to fall off. Alright, let's see what I got myself into on this side. Alright, first I'll get the cover off. Yeah, I don't think that would have come off with the bar in place. Okay, we have fuel lines, or fuel return lines actually is what I think they are. So there's a clip right there. Looks like a 8mm socket is needed to undo the clip that's holding the large hose. It appears that the small hose is part of a wiring loom bracket, and it doesn't appear that that needs to be removed, but I'll start digging into it. There's also another anchor point right there. Well, the fuel line return, I'm calling it a return, seems to be anchored right here, but I took that off and it didn't really seem to help, so I put it back on. Also, there's plenty of clearance to disconnect the coil here. The other ones, not so much. You just kind of have to finagle your way. There is enough room to disconnect them. So I'm going to disconnect them and then undo the bolts, see if the coils come out. Alright, there's just barely enough room to push things out of the way to get that disconnected. Now I got to take the bolt out and pull the coils. Well, that wasn't so bad to get the bolts out. I did it blind. I just reached over and used my electric ratchet. Took them right out. Now I'll remove the coils. Alright, that was the only one that was really kind of tough. Alright, next is spark plugs, so I'll either go in from this angle or I'll reach over the top. You can see where someone broke the plastic here. I know what that was. It's trying to get the tool in to change the spark plug. And it's kind of tough, so I'm going to do a build. What I mean by that is I'm going to put the socket in there with a, I can't even find it, with a 6-inch extension. Set it in place and put a 3-inch extension on there, and then my ratchet or breaker bar if I need it. So for the other ones, I'm just reaching over the top, feeling around for it, breaking it loose. Again, we'll look at the spark plugs and coils, look for oil, other damage, differences between the spark plugs, and Hopefully we don't find anything, right? Right, time to install the new ones. Alright, it's tighten and torque. Alright, coils back in. So I'm trying to connect it as I set it in place here so I don't have to fight that plug. And that seems to be working out really well. I know my hand was in the way, but here we go. Now we just lock them in place, put the screws back in. You definitely want to remember to put the cover on before you set the anti-torque bar in place. You also want to remember to start all your bolts first. Don't tighten any one down. That way you know everything's lined up correctly. Alright, and torque these guys down if you want to. I'm just going for Guten tight. Well, you want to start it up, make sure it's running smooth. You don't have to worry about spark plug wires anymore. That's kind of taken care of for you, so you don't have to worry about those kind of out of timing issues. That's why I like working on modern cars, because you don't have to deal with a lot of crap you had to deal with in the past. So a lot of people say, oh, you can't work on new cars, it's not, you know, well, I think it's easier. As far as tools, there's the usual suspect, you know, a screwdriver. I showed you the trick I used with the screwdriver. In the back, I used a body panel tool to disconnect the wiring from the coils. A variety of extensions, I didn't use them all. I like using 1/4 inch, so I use some things for 1/4 inch, some things 3/8. I like my electric ratchet, that's wonderful. Torque wrench. I needed a 14 millimeter deep well, 18 millimeter, 13 millimeter, 10 millimeter socket. I needed this wrench, 10 millimeter wrench. I didn't show you what I needed it for, but it's no big deal. Anyway, just the usual suspects, not very many tools at all.